How could someone who appears so innocent be capable of such evil? Lucy Letby, the nurse who killed babies. No, it can't be Lucy. Not sweet, caring Lucy. But tonight, new, explosive evidence comes to light. She craved the attention of a doctor, and he gave it to her. It was a moment no one will ever forget, the moment when parents caught her trying to kill their newborn. Sickening, it's beyond belief, it's unfathomable, and maddening. But when one doctor tried to warn everyone, it gets worse. He was silenced, forced to apologize to her. The fact that when the police listened to the story for less than 10 minutes, they knew they had to step in, that speaks volumes. I could have punched the air. Welcome to Unveiled Crime Mysteries channel, where I unveil mysterious true crimes, some lost to time, others fresh in memory. Justice might not be served, but the shadow is unveiled. What could possibly drive a seemingly nice young nurse from a good family to repeatedly take the lives of helpless infants? Tonight we'll uncover the disturbing psychology behind Lucy Letby's obsession with killing babies. We'll reveal fresh evidence, shocking revelations, her hidden desires, and her chilling confession. Plus, hear from the parents of her first intended victim, if only someone had listened sooner. And we dive into her twisted obsession with a married doctor. Was that her real motive? Here's what we know. Lucy Letby was an only child, adored by her parents. She longed for attention, and when she left home to become a neonatal nurse, she sought it elsewhere. She created a life and death drama in the hospital when she began murdering premature babies under her care. But tragically, at just 25 years old, no one suspected a thing. She was too sweet, too innocent looking, but deep inside, she was pure evil. Vulnerable babies, in a hospital. It's unheard of. It's something no one would ever believe could happen. A serial killer working in their local hospital. The thought was impossible. I remember saying to myself, no, it can't be Lucy. Not nice Lucy. It couldn't be true. How could someone like her harm a baby? It wasn't in her nature. Even Tim Watson-Munro, one of Australia's leading criminal psychologists, couldn't make sense of the twisted psychology behind it all. The last thing you'd ever expect when you go to the doctor or hospital, or even have a surgeon, is that they're going to harm you, or worse, your child. After school, Lucy Letby left home to study nursing in Chester, in the north of England. She bought a house, adopted rescue cats, and went out salsa dancing. She was doing what she loved, living the life she'd always dreamed of. In 2010, she joined a local hospital. She was well liked and did her job with no issues. Nothing happened for 5 years, but then things changed. Over the next year, a killing spree would unfold. What went wrong? I think it started small, a toe dipped into the water. For people like her, it's like an addiction. It begins with fantasy, then moves to action, and escalates. Once she'd killed a few, she knew she could get away with it. On the outskirts of Chester, we meet Victoria and Michael Whitfield. They believe they were among Lucy Letby's first victims. In November 2013, Victoria gave birth to Felicity, tiny but healthy at 34 weeks. That was until the early hours of November 20, when Victoria walked in to find Lucy Letby standing over her baby. My first encounter with her was, I just had a feeling I needed to go down, said Victoria. I don't know why, but I went down, walked toward the neonatal unit, and there she was, standing next to the cot. She looked up at me, stared, and walked away. At the time I thought nothing of it, just a glance and a walk away. But then everything went haywire, all the alarms went off. Is that the look you saw on her face? The interviewer asked. Yeah, no smile, just a blank expression, and then she walked away. It sickens me to my stomach. She was the first person to wash, bathe, and change my baby, and now I can't stop thinking about it. Victoria recalled. It was a blank look, no smile, no words. She just stood there, doing whatever she was doing, and then walked away. And then the alarms went off. I sat down by the incubator, looked at Felicity, and then buzzers started going off. A nurse ran over. It wasn't Lucy. I remember that much. She pressed the emergency button. From that moment, I went into shock. The nurse turned to me and said, "Get your husband." I was frozen, just sitting there. Then she screamed at me, "Get your husband now." Victoria's heart raced as she ran to call her husband Mike. When he arrived, he was faced with carnage. "What did the nurses or doctors say to you?" the interviewer asked. "They said she was extremely poorly. Her lungs had collapsed. They suggested we get her blessed now, because there was a chance she wouldn't make it." But what shocked them even more was that just days before, Felicity had been breathing on her own. She'd been doing well. Whatever Lucy Letby had done left their daughter fighting for her life. Victoria and Mike were told to prepare for the worst. "We got the grandparents in, and we got a blessing," said Victoria. "I held her hand and just kept saying, 'You're going to make it through this, Felicity. You're going to pull through.' And somehow she did. They had to fully incubate her, but somehow they managed to stabilize her, even though she wasn't breathing on her own. It was unbearable. That morning it felt like my heart had been ripped out. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the world had come crashing down. Maybe it was because Felicity survived before Lucy Letby had finished what she set out to do. But sadly, not all parents would be as fortunate. Among the many victims, Letby killed or severely harmed twin boys. Do you remember when you first saw them? The interviewer asks. It was pure joy, happiness. I felt like the proudest new dad, says the father. The twins were born 10 weeks early, and just 5 days after their birth, one of the boys suddenly took a turn for the worse. Lucy Letby was the nurse caring for him. The father recalls, I immediately heard crying in the corridor. I rushed into the room and saw it was my boy. There was blood around his mouth, and Lucy was there doing nothing. I was asking, what's wrong with him? Lucy calmly told him, don't worry, the registrar is on his way. I've already called him. He'll be here soon. Then she said, you should go back to the ward. He tried to reassure his wife, they're experts. If they say there's no problem, we've got nothing to worry about. But that was just the first call. Another call came in quickly. You need to get here now. Then a third phone call. Where are you? The priest has been called. That's when he knew. You don't call a priest unless someone's dying. Their baby had very little time left. What no one knew at the time was that Letby had injected air into his bloodstream, one of her preferred methods of murder. These were the most fragile and vulnerable of babies, born prematurely. Does that factor into her evil? It's almost like a god complex, isn't it? A sense of power, of having control over life and death. She picked who lived and who died, and that fed her ego in ways we can't even imagine. After their son died, the father recalls, Lucy Letby asked if I wanted her to bathe him in front of me. I said yes, so she bathed him and dressed him in a tiny gown. Then she handed him back to us. We held him for a little while longer. This would have given her a thrill, attention, power, a feeling of control. A baby had died on her watch, and now she'd receive sympathy and attention. After each death, Lucy Letby would text her colleagues, lost a little one overnight. Very unexpected and sad. She seemed so matter-of-fact about the deaths. How do such sick babies survive while others die so suddenly? She'd ask herself. There's a reason for everything, an element of fate, she said. But her behavior was even more twisted than the messages she sent to colleagues. She took pleasure in toying with the parents' emotions. She even sent them sympathy cards. There are no words to make this time any easier. Thinking of you today and always. Sorry I cannot be there to say goodbye. She acted as if she too was grieving with them. What does that say about her? The interviewer asks. I think it's just a cover-up, the father responds. She's pretending to care. She's trying to hide her tracks. She wants to seem empathic, but an empathic person wouldn't harm children like this. She's a psychopath. He believes that if she hadn't been caught, she would have kept going. It's about power, about being needed. She was pampered as an only child. She thought she could get away with it. A psychologist points to a photo of Lucy's room. Look at that. It's like a teenager's bedroom. Pink dressing gown, a bucket, fairy lights. It's messy. Is this the room of a woman in her late 20s or early 30s? The psychologist comments. It's infantile, isn't it? Childish. It doesn't look like a mature woman's room, and she was lonely, no relationships. She feared she'd stay single and childless. But to her friends, Lucy Letby seemed normal. She liked to party and loved her job, they say. She always wanted to be a nurse. That was the only career she ever mentioned wanting. Outside of our group, she was shy, reserved and serious. But inside she was goofy, bubbly. She loved having fun and getting dressed up. One of her friends adds, she was the kindest person I've ever known. She only wanted to help people. It's impossible to think she could harm any baby. But this case doesn't fit the usual profile of a serial killer. It's remarkable that doctors didn't see the pattern sooner. Every time she worked alone, the death rate spiked. For years, doctors assumed these were just tragic outcomes for babies born too early to survive. But as the deaths kept rising, some doctors began to question. Could she be doing something deliberately, they wondered. In the summer of 2016, Lucy Letby was moved to administrative duties, and the deaths stopped. But what happens next is almost unbelievable. Hospital managers sided with her and reprimanded the doctors who had blown the whistle. They had acted unprofessionally, bullied her, they were told. Then the hospital read out a letter from Lucy, a letter filled with aggression. I'm coming back to work. You have to work with me. I'm going to prove I'm a great nurse and not a killer like you say. And the chilling words that followed. A line has been drawn. If you cross it, there will be consequences for you. Tony Chambers, the chief executive, ordered that we apologize to Lucy Letby. He drew a line and told us not to cross it. If we did, there would be consequences. They made us write a letter of apology to Lucy Letby. But it didn't stop there. We were even forced to attend mediation sessions with her. After that,
Letby returned to work, and soon after, the killings resumed. Yet, even now, her colleagues refused to believe someone so seemingly innocent could be capable of such evil. She had friends. She wasn't seen as suspicious. There was no sign she was obsessed with serial killers. But there was one person she was obsessed with, a married doctor. She craved his attention, and he gave it to her. Was lust the real motive for her murders? It's hard to fathom why someone would abuse the trust placed in them, especially with such vulnerable patients. How could anyone do that? What could possibly motivate them? When Lucy Letby joined the Countess of Chester Hospital in January 2012, she quickly impressed everyone with her dedication and care. But by 2015, something changed. Not long after her 25th birthday, Lucy began working in intensive care with premature babies. Within weeks, she murdered her first newborn. She even tried to kill his twin sister the next day. Whether her victims lived or died, Letby seemed to enjoy the drama, and most importantly, it gave her a chance to be near the doctor she was obsessed with. In her diaries, Lucy spoke of her loneliness, her despair over being unmarried and childless. But she may have had other fantasies. Lucy craved attention, and the attention she wanted most was from a doctor, referred to in court as Dr. A. She knew him well and knew he'd be one of the first called when there was an emergency in the neonatal unit. She said she'd never marry or have children, the trial revealed. But she was trying to impress one of the medical staff, wasn't she? There was a connection there with Dr. A. Clearly, Lucy wanted his approval, his affection. She might have been trying to impress him by playing the hero nurse, saving the babies, or at least pretending to save them. It's sickening, but it makes sense. She was after attention, and when the doctor gave it to her, it only reinforced her behavior. The human cost meant nothing to her as long as she got the attention she craved. Her thinking was immature, almost adolescent. She was calculating, cunning, and desperate for status. Maybe in her mind, if she impressed him enough, she'd finally have the family and life she always wanted, living with a doctor in a hospital. It's childish thinking, but that might have been what was driving her. The police were finally convinced there was a killer in the hospital after a family with twins lost one of their sons in August 2015. The next day, his twin brother also became gravely ill. "This can't be happening," the father recalled. "It's almost exactly 24 hours since our other son died. This can't be happening again." So he sat with his son all night. His heart rate was off the charts, refusing to come down. "I was willing the machine to bring it down, to make it stop." Medics managed to save the baby, but he was severely affected by the trauma and would suffer lifelong difficulties. Later, this case provided a breakthrough when tests confirmed the baby had been injected with insulin. In other words, it wasn't just a tragic accident, a human hand had caused it. The insulin cases were a major turning point in the investigation. "We were shocked to the core," said one investigator, "to find that a baby had been injected with insulin. It revealed the depths of Lucy Letby's depravity." When Letby was arrested and questioned, her mugshot was emotionless, blank, unfeeling, staring straight at the camera. When she was questioned, she continued to lie, insisting the deaths were nothing more than a series of coincidences. As police seized her computer, her diary, and post-it notes, they found a disturbing window into her mind. "I am an awful person. I hate myself. Panic, fear, lost. Why me? I did this. I hate it," she wrote. Over and over, she scrawled, "I am evil. I did this." These weren't the words of someone insane. The self-loathing was palpable. Panic, fear, hatred, and yet she didn't stop. She went on to write, "Kill me." It was dark. She was clearly aware of what she was doing, the magnitude of her actions. Perhaps she even felt it was beyond her control, that the only way to stop herself was to end her life. But she didn't end it, and when it came to the trial, she still pleaded not guilty. No remorse, no real acknowledgement of what she'd done. She was rolling the dice, hoping she'd get away with it. The notes she wrote were a confession of sorts, a cry for help, but also a statement of guilt. She knew what she'd done, but still, she denied it, refusing to take responsibility. It was clear she wasn't just a woman with a troubled mind, she was a killer. Coming up, a lifetime of imprisonment awaits her. And as the investigation continues, many wonder, could this have been stopped before it went this far? Lucy Letby's trial dragged on for over 9 months. Monday, 21st August 2023, she was found guilty of murdering 7 newborn babies and attempting to kill 6 others. She'll forever be remembered as one of the most horrific child serial killers in history. But the real question is, how many more victims are out there? British authorities are still investigating her involvement with over 4,000 children. "Did you have any concerns about the rising death rate?" "Yes," came the reply. "Extraordinary. We're dealing with someone who's evil, not mad. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Someone aware of the consequences. In simple terms, a psychopath. I sentence you to life imprisonment." Because of the gravity of her crimes, the judge ruled that she wouldn't be eligible for early release. A whole life order was handed down for each of her offenses. She'll spend the rest of her days behind bars. How close do you think you came to losing your daughter? Very, very close. That morning, November 20th, is something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. It was that close. Vicky's voice shook as she added, if I hadn't followed my instinct, if I hadn't gone down to the unit at exactly that moment, if I hadn't disturbed Lucy Letby, this could have turned out so differently. Exactly, said her partner. That's the terrifying thought. We don't know what would have happened. That's why we're here. We need answers. We need them to look at the earlier cases. I don't believe Lucy Letby suddenly started in 2015. She's been working in that hospital for years. I think if people higher up had listened to complaints, whether from parents or medical experts, they might have noticed something. They might have connected the dots. They could have stopped it before 2015, before 2016. Yeah, if someone had listened, maybe those 7 babies would still be alive today, Vicky added, her voice heavy with emotion. My tiny feisty boy, my firstborn, the night he collapsed, the shock and panic I felt will stay with me forever, the father said. I carry his handprint and footprint around my neck. It's the only piece of him I have left. When Letby was arrested, those small memories I held onto felt tainted. She took that from me. We're the lucky ones, Vicky said, her voice breaking. We get to tuck Felicity in at night. We get to kiss her goodnight. But for other parents, they don't have that. They never will. Their children are gone, stolen from them. And my heart goes out to them. I can't imagine the pain they're still feeling. We can't just leave it at this, the father said. Yes, she's been sentenced to life, but there's more to it. This could have been stopped before it ever reached this point.
As the trial comes to an end, the camera lingers on Lucy Letby's cold, emotionless face. A verdict has been reached, but the true toll of her actions stretches far beyond the courtroom. 7 innocent lives lost, 6 more forever scarred. Her reign of terror finally over, but the damage she caused? It can never be undone. The families, the victims, they will never be the same. Their grief, their pain, it's something time cannot heal. We'll never forget them, one mother whispers, her voice trembling with loss. The weight of those words lingers in the air, heavy and haunting. For the families left behind, the heartbreak will never go away. They took something we can never get back, a father says, his voice breaking. A child's life stolen, their memories, their future, erased in an instant, and yet despite the sorrow, there's something in the silence, something that speaks of survival, of resilience. We're the lucky ones, another parent says, holding their surviving child close, knowing their family was spared. They will never forget, but they will carry on, for those who didn't survive. Justice may have been served, but the fight to protect the innocent is never over. This story may have ended, but the lessons, the warnings, will echo for generations to come. The haunting words remain, never forget, a world changed, lives forever altered, but through it all, the hope that we can still protect what's most precious, the children. What do you think about Lucy Letby's twisted mind? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.